All right. Hey guys, thanks for being here. Hope everything is going well. So I wanted to start off just by, just looking at the next matchup, which is Dallas. And, you've won the majority of your games against them this season. So it's kind of a two-part question where one, despite winning the majority of your games against them, do you think they're your toughest competition or your closest rivals this season? And then two, um, do you think that they've improved now that Krim is on M4?
Um, I can take that. So I think they've definitely been like one of our toughest rivals this season, and even like right now. But I feel with how developed every team right now is, and every team that is in the Final Four, and how talented everyone is, I think everyone is our biggest rival at this moment. I think anything can happen this coming Saturday and Sunday of what goes on after this first best of five, and then if you make it to the finals of that best of nine and stuff. So I think every team is definitely our best rival right now, just because of how talented every squad is. But throughout the year, we've just played them so many times, and we do have majority of wins. But they're such a great team, and if you really analyze a lot of those matches, they're all pretty close matches. Even the ones that we have 3-0'd, or like even the ones that they beat us. So it's like overall, they're just a great team. And with Prim being on the M4 and them improving a little bit, I think it helps. But I think regardless of their roles, they're just such a talented squad. We're just gonna have to bring our A game if we want to win.
Great, Emily. Please feel free to ask your question.
All right, this question is for Crowder. I already talked to Austin about this a bit, but I also wanted to get your thoughts as the FaZe head coach on how the MP5 changes have affected your preparation going into championship weekend.
The MP5 changes affected a little bit just because a lot of these players play hours on end a day, and they're just preparing so hard for this event, specifically this one, and having something like a major change to like just the way your gun looks like in the game, even though it could just be a visual change, it affects players because you have to have like perfection at this level, right? So it makes it a little bit weird, but overall, to answer it from our side of things, they've been pretty happy with it. It hasn't really affected them. They haven't been negative about it at all. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a press conference or anything. It's just overall, they've been pretty positive all year with a lot of these things. They're pretty good at adapting. So I wouldn't say that's really standing in our way at all.
Thank you.
Sean, feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, it's for either of you. With the talent condensed to these four teams, how important is it to be mentally tougher than your opponent at this point in the season? There are obviously champions on the team, but there's also some players without that experience. I guess how do you teach the important mindset and make sure that guys have throughout?
Are you taking that one or me?
No, you got it. You're living this with these guys now.
So, I mean, yeah. So the talent having like the four teams left right now, and these teams being so talented, and all these good squads, kind of like I said before, a lot of it is the mental game, and really teaching some of the players that don't have experience, even though the majority of our players have been there before on this team. Like they've been in finals before in tournaments like that. It's just making sure like they just don't let like outside things kind of affect them, and they just know that they have like one more week left. This is the most important time of right now, probably most of their careers. This is the most money they've played for, and it's almost more or less like not even making them like mentally tough, you would say, or like as you said, it's more or less like just reminding them that this is still the game that they love to play, and not to overthink it, and make sure that they're having fun and getting good practice every day. I think a lot of players in the league that have seen from coaching, and when I was a player myself on some of my own teams, sometimes you take for granted the practice days that you have with scrims, where you show up and you don't give it like your full effort, and after the tournament ends, especially when you don't win, you kind of look back and you go like, damn, I wish I had some more time to practice like that specific hill or that specific map. So just making sure that the players are just having some fun and getting good practice, like, and not having any of the days they show up and waste at all.
Thanks, James. Teo, feel free to ask your question.
All right. So this is kind of more general than kind of the Dallas specific question from earlier. All season, fans in the media have kind of talked about Simp and Cell as being you guys' two most impactful players. I mean, they each got the MVP nomination for a reason. But do you think that any player on the team kind of stands out as the X factor for Champs Weekend?
Chris, you want to both do this? I'll go first and
Yeah, you
tell
go
them what
first.
I think. Okay.
Okay.
I think what's made our team as good as it's proven to be is that we have 5 really, really selfless players. No one's worried about their stats or what gun they're going to run. And honestly, the times that we've struggled has just been more when somebody hasn't had their best game as opposed to somebody going crazy. Even when you think about Simp's 50 kill game, we barely won that map, right? And he totally exploded. So in my mind, the X factor is just all 5 of them playing solid and playing together more than it is a single other human.
And yeah, so to add on to that, I agree. And I think we made this team specifically not to worry about X factors, and not saying that we had I believe in the 5 players on this team more than anybody. And I really do think they're some of the best players in the entire world. But this team was made to focus on things that aren't stats. Like when these guys lose in scrims and when we watch VODs and a bunch of things over, it's never like, oh, like this guy just had a bad game, don't worry about it, we're moving on. Like a lot of the times players like Simp and Celium get set up because players like Abizi and Priesta and stuff are going in first, or they're kind of playing more aggressive. That helps them like play their game and settle back and get a little bit of easier kills and pad the stats. And like it kind of goes just whoever's going in first. It doesn't matter. Like no one will ever blame each other on this team for that kind of performance, and that's why someone like Abizi is so important. So if you want to, I guess, talk about X factors, I think his performance is really important. But at the end of the day, it's more or less those 5 playing their game, not trying to do too much, sticking to like just the plan of what we want to do as a team and accomplishing it like that. Like it doesn't matter who plays good, who plays bad, and they really do believe that. We've had some struggles this year with some players not doing the best, and not for a single second this year was anyone like, wow, like this guy sucks, we need to switch it. It was just a full-hearted like we believe in each other and we have to get better as like a team, as like a collective unit.
Emily, feel free to ask your questions.
So this first one is for Crowder. Kind of piggybacking off of the last question, actually. You guys have been the most consistent top team all year in terms of results, even with having to go online during the pandemic. So how has the team managed to stay so consistent, even in perceived slumps, which pretty much made like semifinals instead of finals?
So we managed to stay like consistent through those slumps just by like being like a family. I know that sounds like kind of cliche with like the whole like being a team and being a family, like more than teammates, but we really do believe in each other. And when we had like, there's never going to be a season, in my opinion, where you start off and you just win every single event. Like there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. Any team, any sport, doesn't matter. But it's more when those tough times do come, as that's like when everyone wants those like these players and the coaching staffs and the management to come together and figure out what's going wrong and how we can fix it in the most positive way, not start pointing fingers and saying this guy's not bringing like his A game to his game and all that. And a lot of that kind of stems to me as like from a coaching standard or no, sorry, coaching standpoint, is just having good practice and showing up with the best attitude mentally, physically, and everything, where you're bringing 100% to practice, and eventually you'll figure out the kinks that are not working for you, and you'll end up like progressing through that. And not losing faith is like a big thing for that.
Thank you. And then my next question was for Paul. If you had to give the CDL season a grade, what would it be? And then what were the strengths and opportunity areas for the CDL in their inaugural season?
So a grade as far as the league itself or our team or both?
Go with both, actually. This is a question courtesy of my video producer, who's also on but busy with other stuff, so he wanted to know.
To grade the team, I give 100% of the credit to Eric, who is our unseen GM, and Crowder, because they and RJ, those 3 guys work together on, the first thing I asked for was, I said, I'll take B-level talent with A-level attitude. I just think vibes are more important than anything. I've lived it. I see it. And everyone agreed across the board. And we were able to get A talent with incredible personalities. So I give us an A. I give the team an A for all their hard work. And like Crowder said, and like you said, I mean, those really were slumps for us. But there was never anything negative going on. There was, it was always super positive, and all it ever came down to was just working harder and working smarter. And every time we did that, you saw whoever the perceived slump, whoever was having that, you saw them turn things around very quickly. So I'd say our sort of adaptability helped us a lot. As far as the league, I give the league an A for effort. There's definitely things that, in hindsight, I think could have been done better, but they weren't. The coronavirus has affected everyone differently. Our goal was to take esports and sort of apply a traditional model and have live events. And you've been to them, Emily, so you've seen them. And that went out the window. And when you have players of this skill playing online with any internet issues, any ping issues, and I always appreciated that Crowder never blamed the internet. Even when we had an issue, he never was like, you never heard a complaint from our team or the players. But when you're playing for this kind of money and there's only 60 pros in the world playing, the difference between the very best player and the very worst player is a millisecond, right? And so if on the day that you're having ping issues, then you're not the best player anymore. And that's not something I think any of us could have done anything about, especially making sure that we kept the safety of the players first, which is what we did. But I think we've done the best that we can to create a product that's really exciting. And hopefully next year we'll be able to have some more protected LAN events where we can really see these guys shine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Teo, you're up.
All right, this is probably better suited to Crowder. I just kind of wanted to go back to the Dallas matchup specifically, as it's obviously going to be on the top of most people's minds. So I'm curious to know if you think there's a biggest threat on that team for you guys. Just looking at matchups, the same way you said BZ could be an X factor because of the work he puts in on the map. You could see Illy as kind of playing a similar role, or Shotzi is obviously like a top threat in everybody's minds as the MVP. So I'm just curious to know, when you're looking at that team specifically, does anybody or any role kind of stand out as the most worrisome for you guys to focus on?
I mean, I said it before, Dallas is just overall such an incredibly talented team. So it's almost not fair to say one or two of the players, because all of them at any given moment can have such a great series against any team in the league. But I guess it would be like Shotzi and Hugh. I think both of them are so explosive. I give a lot of credit to Illy, and he plays a role that a lot of people kind of overlook sometimes. Not everybody, but his stats don't always show like how good he really is. But like Shotzi and Hugh, when like they're really firing on all cylinders and feeling really good, they're very like hard force to stop. So to make sure they don't get hot would be like one of the priorities, I guess, for us to shut down. But just overall, man, like Clay and Krim are the veterans. They've been here so many times before, and they turn up when it matters the most, as their track record obviously shows. They have some great accolades under their belt. So I would say like all five of them, but when it comes to like the most explosive and like scary, if they're really like feeling themselves in a sense, it would definitely be Shotzi and Hugh.
All right, appreciate it.
No problem.
Sean, feel free to ask your question.
This one's for Paul, and Crowder can tack on as well if he likes. Do you think the CDL has dynasty power with its teams, kind of like yourself and Dallas and Chicago? And when you were building this team, how far down the line were you looking as far as like how impactful it could be?
What I will tell you guys right now, this is just a fact. When Eric and I had set out to build the team, priority number one was getting Crowder and RJ to be our coaches. Crowder is exactly the way he is here. When you deal with him privately, just they're great guys. And so I told them, my preference would be to get the best, youngest lineup we could get. And to your point, because I think, one of the things that goes wrong in esports is I think, they say like a day in esports is like a month in anything else. Well, I'd like to sort of do it a little bit different. I mean, I wanted to be super thoughtful about the guys that we signed, both again from a personality standpoint and an overall talent standpoint. And I think we ended up with, I think our team is at the beginning of the season when all the rosters were formed, I think our team is 2 years younger on average than the next youngest team. You could fact check that, but we're super young. And part of our goal was by having Crowder, we sort of felt like it would be less relevant to worry about an in-game leader if we had Crowder, super well respected world champion. And if you have young guys, all of our guys, they're willing to listen and they're willing to talk and they take what they learn and they go in game and they go. So yeah, I mean, our goal is to have this team together long term, and to win. As far as Chicago and Dallas, I mean, both of those rosters are incredible. The media called it from the beginning. Basically, I think these three teams more often than not were called out as who were going to be the best. So it's sort of neat to see three of those teams left at the end. But any one of these teams could win it this weekend. Who gets hot at the right second, and you sort of COD timing. If you turn at the right moment and it happens, and that turns into good luck, and that spirals into a win, and vice versa, right? So. But yeah, to your point, our goal was to put together a team and a family that we had together for a long period of time, and not to have roster mania as it pertained to Atlanta, at least.
And I would agree with like everything Paul said. I think a lot of like dynasties that form, when you look at a team, a lot of it starts where like most of the time the players get a lot of credit, which is obvious. They kind of deserve it. They're playing the game and they're putting a lot of practice hours in, along with the coaching staff and stuff. But a lot of it comes with like good management and ownership, in my opinion, as well. Like I've been super happy here with Atlanta FaZe. I've said that publicly like many of times, but I personally think very highly of the Dallas ownership and management. And the same thing with Chicago as well. Like I think the people that are making the teams beforehand too, like before these teams were even built, deserve a lot of credit in that way. And I think like those management and ownership groups over there as well, on top of Atlanta FaZe, are really well put together. And I think that's why like they would have that potential to have like a really good run for a long time, like and be considered a dynasty in a sense.
Emily, feel free to ask your question.
So one of the more hilarious and or interesting things I've been tracking across the season, talking to your players, is your comms, which are known to be incredibly frenetic and incomprehensible. So do you do you think this kind of contributes to hyping the guys up in game, or have you been trying to slow things down a bit for champs, especially on S&D, where like you kind of do want that IGL calling the shots?
So yes, I will totally agree with you. The comms and the communication between the players have been interesting throughout the years. Some of the listenings have been more funny, but yeah, just in general, that's something we've been working on. And even like from my coaching standpoint for them is making sure that they can understand each other sometimes because there's been times in practice and scrimmages where I'm watching them play and like I'm watching the map and the mini map and everything going on, and even I'm just like I fall into like a tunnel of just like what is going on, and then I have to slow them down. And if I can't understand them and I'm not even focused on my own game, the only thing I have to focus on is them. They definitely can't understand each other. So we've worked on that a lot, probably these last like month and a half, 2 months, and it really showed at the Toronto home series, and it even showed in that Chicago match. I was super happy with the way they were communicating in that first match for their World Championship tournament. So we've been working on it, and it's getting there. It's something we work on and practice a lot. It's still kind of really hard because when you get into that zone and you get so into it, a lot of these guys, they talk a lot, they communicate a lot, which is a great thing, but sometimes they have to slow it down. So trying to find that like happy medium is really where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think Emily, like, so it's just the amount of times Crowder and I have talked about this with Eric, like, and RJ were like, what are they talking about? But I just laugh because I always think that they talk as fast as they move. Like that's how fast their brain is going, and they're just saying stuff. But yeah, there's no world where they can understand anything that they're saying. Just randomly, I can't understand a word. I just pick out a name occasionally if they're calling somebody out. That's it, though.
Yeah, it's been fun to listen in. Thank you.
All right, Teo, ask your question, please.
So This one's a little weird. I know losing is not on anybody's mind right now, but let's say as a thought experiment, you guys do lose to Dallas and then you have to work your way back up. Do you have a preference between playing Chicago or London?
I mean, yeah, definitely don't plan on. Like, I don't think any team in this last four are going into their match planning on losing and then having like a preference against any other team. But to answer that, just generally, no. Just because right now, with how I know I keep harping on this and I keep saying it, but how talented these teams are right now that are left in this tournament, any day of whoever wins between Chicago or London or us and Dallas and all of that, they're going to be playing very well, probably their A game. And if they're bringing their A game, no matter who it is, it's going to be a tough match. It doesn't matter if any team brings their A game; it's just going to be a hard one. So I don't really have a preference to think like who we match up better with or any of that. I think that our focus and our only focus will be us playing the best Call of Duty we can be, staying calm in the comms, and doing all the stuff that we've been practicing and executing when it matters. I think that's like the only like preference we really have for anyone. And if we know if we play the best to our ability and do our thing, we can beat anyone at any given time, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on.
Yeah, for me, I just think, one of the issues if you do lose is you're coming off of a loss, right? And the person you're going to play just came off of a huge win. So emotionally, they're really excited. And a super excited or dangerous Chicago or London, either one of them are going to be really, really tough. So I don't really have a preference.
All right, appreciate you guys answering that one. I know nobody's thinking of losing right now.
All right, any final media questions? I'll give you a moment to enter it into the chat if you do. Great. Well, thank you both, Paul and James, so much for your time, and thank you to the media for joining. Paul and James, any last thoughts you'd like to leave the group with?
Paul,
Yeah, Crowder, get back to work. You got to go grind. No, just thanks everyone for taking the time and covering us all season. And without you guys, then a lot of people don't care. So we appreciate the media a lot. And we're going to try to put on a show this weekend. But the most important thing is that the league shows a great finish to the year. Hopefully we have some great matches.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. This concludes the press conference.